Welcome to Doctor on Call with your host, DocGriffon. The doctor will be with you momentarily. Our guest this evening is the talented composer Brandon Boone. Advisory: please keep Doctor on Call out of reach of children and pets. In case of entertainment overdose, get urgent medicinal help of 100 proof or better. If pregnant or breastfeeding, ask an alcoholic health professional before enjoying the show. Doc Griffin, paging Doc Griffin, you're needed in the OR. Stat.
And thank you, Nurse Wicket. Tonight, we're going to be delving into the musical realm. So this is for your ears, definitely. We're speaking to a composer that you may not necessarily know his name, but if you're a fan of creepypastas, especially from the Chilling Tales for Dark Nights website or the ever-popular No Sleep podcast, which actually is going on tour in just a little bit, then you will know this man by his works. So it is my pleasure to introduce composer Brandon Boone. How are you doing this evening, Brandon?
I'm doing wonderful. Yourself?
Oh, I have no complaints, and I've honestly been looking forward to this. I know you've got a busy schedule.
Yeah.
But we certainly do appreciate you coming by, and we always usually start off with the qualifier of where did you grow up?
I grew up where I still currently live, and that's Cincinnati, Ohio, just a little south of you, and yeah, still live here.
And did you have a lot of brothers and sisters, or only kid?
I'm the oldest. I have two younger brothers.
Oh, so did you have a lot to live up to, being the oldest brother?
Not much.
Well, you know, technically, the parents set the rules, but the oldest kid usually sets the standard.
That's true. I definitely could see that.
Now, did you have a mom and a dad in the household?
Yeah. Like a lot of people, they eventually got divorced and had to do that whole back and forth kind of thing. But yeah.
Gotcha. Now, who would you say was your bigger influence, your mom or your dad?
Oh wow, that's tough. I would say probably my dad. I grew up working in the family business, so he definitely had a big impact on me.
Now, so does that mean that was your dad a musician, a composer?
No, I am the only musician in my family.
Really?
Yeah, there's no. Oh, I guess not anymore. My youngest brother has started playing guitar, and he's pretty good.
So, what about his profession gave you focus?
I think just more than anything, he always grew up teaching me strong work ethic and discipline, that kind of thing.
And you would find that to be a rare thing nowadays. People seemingly don't like to talk about espousing the work ethic. I've seen a lot of people who say that that their good fortune was more luck than hard work. And I don't know, from being established with that, how did that work as far as because you know when you're in school, when you're in elementary grades and going up K through 12, did that have any impact on you, or was it until you got to your adulthood?
Um, Probably adulthood. I goofed around a lot in school. Not the ideal student by any means.
Kind of decent grades, but just
No, yeah, always had good grades. I just would lose attention and stuff pretty quickly and start just goofing around with my friends and everything.
what was your best subject?
Um, Probably history.
Okay.
Kind of a history nerd.
Well, because I hear a lot of people, and a lot of people that I've spoken with, they've said right up front, like, you know, you're a musician, but music wasn't their number one when they were going through K through 12. It always seemed to be something else.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
I find that incredibly interesting. Now, when you're Now, were you part of like band or orchestra?
Not at all. I have no musical training background, any of that kind of stuff.
Wow. So what sparked your interest?
Um, I played guitar when I was a teenager, very poorly,
Okay.
and I think most teenagers do. But eventually, when I got maybe late high school, early college, I started playing around with like computer programs like Fruity Loops and Reason,
Oh yeah.
and just started making kind of like electronic music that way, teaching myself and just kind of playing around with the software. And then eventually, um, we have a radio station here in Cincinnati for the blind,
Mm-hmm.
and my wife is a volunteer there and would do some voice acting. And they needed some original music for a audio drama that this guy Rick Young did. And my wife was like, "Hey, my husband has all this software and he makes music, like this from time to time." And so I started doing that. And at the time, I was a fan of No Sleep, and I was listening to it. And David had mentioned that the show was becoming a lot of work. And so I just kind of said, "Hey, if you need any help doing the music, here's some examples of the stuff I've done." And just shot him an email with that, and then he brought me on.
Uh, Now, so did you have any college ambitions or?
I have a degree in marketing. I used some of free electives on like some electronic music classes and maybe like a film music class or something like that, but nothing really particular.
So were you under the onus of when you graduated that it was automatically assumed that you were going to go to college?
Yeah, yeah. My dad made sure of that, and I was going. Me and my brother both went to business school. Um, in the mindset of taking over the family business.
Would you consider it though, just kind of going through the motions because it's really not what you wanted to do?
Yeah, I guess, looking back on it, you're so much younger than you think you are at the time, and it's easy to just kind of do what you think you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well, and honestly, that I don't think it's a detrimental thing because they always tell musicians don't quit your day job,
right. It's very true.
and a lot of people don't have the qualifications for a decent day job.
Sure.
So I can see that as a logical pathway. Now, well, you had gotten a little bit of computer stuff, like you said, you're working with Fruity Loops
Right.
and
Yeah.
other types of programs, and then your wife, who's involved with a radio station for the blind, kind of just throws this out. How did you feel when she was like, "Hey, honey, do you want to go ahead and write a score for this thing?" Did your eyes get wide?
Yeah, I definitely did. I'd always liked film music and scores and that kind of thing, but I never really thought about it as like a possible career path. And so when she brought this, to me, I thought, oh wow, this is really cool. I'll give it a shot. And kind of working with that and working with the director and kind of, having being able to tell somebody else's story was really appealing to me because that's one thing I always struggled with writing my own music is I never really felt that strongly about telling any specific story. So the kind of stumbling my way into this kind of business has really worked out well because I don't have to tell my own story. I get to help other people tell theirs.
Well, and we had Harry Manfredini on. He's composed over 100 movie scores, but
Right.
he still follows with the same thing about how he has to watch the movie first
Right.
before he can even lay down a single note. Now, most of yours deal with radio dramas, audio
Correct.
plays. Uh, do you find yourself listening through it two or three times before you get the groove?
I definitely listened through once. I'll get like a rough mix from the producers. We're, on No Sleep, it's such a tight schedule doing 2.5+ hours of music a week. Um, they'll send me a rough example of the story. There's no sound effects or any ambient set or anything. It's basically just the vocals, so I can kind of hear the tone of voice and try to allow that to influence how I'm going to, attempt to write the music.
Now, did you initially start with did you initially start with No Sleep, or did you start with Chilling Tales for Dark Nights?
I started with No Sleep. Yeah, I think I've only done maybe 3 or 4 things for Chilling Tales, and that was years and years ago.
Mm.
That's back when I was only doing some of No Sleep, and I was kind of looking for more work. And then eventually, David put me on the entirety of No Sleep, and it's been that way for maybe 4 years now, something like that.
Mm. Okay. Because I'll be honest, that that's where I was introduced to you. So I had no idea until the world expanded out. Is Because I guess I really hate using the term creepypasta
Oh yeah, me too.
because that yeah, because that kind of intonates that it's kind of hack work
Sure.
by people who aren't really writers, but they're trying to make somebody scared.
Right.
And I can say, No Sleep has some quality writing to it.
Oh, for sure.
And I just wondered if you've ever gotten a hold of a story to where where the cringe factor kicked in.
I don't know if a story has made me cringe. I don't think. I think a lot of the stuff that we go after, there's a team of editors that has to get through first before I even know the story exists. So I think they're pretty, they're filtered through pretty thoroughly before I even know, they're going to be on the plate. Um, so one that would make me cringe, I don't think so.
Well, that's not necessarily a bad thing then.
No,
Um,
not at all. They're doing some hard work over there, making sure all the stories are top notch.
yeah, they do quality. Um, so when you sat down to score, the very first thing that you did, I know the first one that you did for the radio station was probably a little bit of trial and error,
Oh yeah.
and you don't receive as much feedback as you do from the people online, because give people the opportunity and they are definitely willing to give you their opinion.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Do you find it a more advantageous creative process to be able to do it through the internet?
Um, that's tough. I don't know. I don't read comments all that often. I don't really try to find any feedback. Unless someone points something out to me or, I'm tagged in something, I'll read it. I learned a couple years ago it's not I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do anyway. So listening to, people bash me or whatever is not gonna help my case. So I just, try to ignore it and do my job.
Now, when you started getting into musical composition, uh, did you start to download or research, reference people doing just actual bare soundtracks?
Yeah, I definitely got into it more. I started studying composition on my own and using, things like there's some workbooks you can get from like Berkeley School of Music and stuff like that, and there's a billion YouTube videos on, learning your scales and modes and learning how to modulate through different keys and all of that kind of thing. And so I just wanted to put as many tools in my toolbox as possible.
Okay.
So I definitely started to go down that rabbit hole and make sure I knew what I was doing. And once David brought me on No Sleep, I actually did I took 2 months of piano lessons just so I kind of had a better understanding of it, and then went back to just teaching myself.
Wow. Now that is amazing, because I would have just naturally assumed that you had instrumental background.
Other than being a terrible guitar player in my teenage years, no, I didn't even know how a piano worked until like 8 years ago.
That must have been incredibly intensive.
Yeah, it's and I think you mentioned earlier hard work and everything. I think I really benefited from being put into a situation where I was held accountable every week.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I kind of stumbled my way into this position where all of a sudden someone else needs my music on a weekly basis. And so, I better learn what I'm doing or I'm going to lose my job. So I took it very seriously and really cracked down and made sure I was, trying to um, mimic what the pros were doing.
Gotcha. So, speaking of pros, was there anybody in particular that influenced you?
Um, when I first started, I think what I go back to all the time when people ask me like what made me want to become a film composer, um, it's a more recent dream than anything, but I will say the opening sequence to The Dark Knight is definitely probably the first time I really noticed the score and how much it impacted a scene, even though it's just that one cello note there in the beginning. But yeah, I would say now that I know more about what I'm doing, I definitely have a lot of influences. Um, Johnny Greenwood in particular is probably my favorite film composer, and then I could just go on and on. Trent Reznor, the Newton Brothers.
Was that was Dark Knight Zimmer?
Yeah,
Okay.
the first one was Zimmer and like James Howard Newton, I think. It was another guy. I forget who else was with him, but
Oh,
Dark Knight was just Zimmer, I believe.
yeah, James Newton Howard. He actually
Yeah.
used to. He got his start with the Elton John band back in the '70s.
Right.
So yeah, that's
No, I'm not wrong about that. It was definitely or maybe it was Harry Gregson Williams. It was one of those guys. There was someone else on that soundtrack with him.
well, no, because I mean, they look. He's one of the top ones. James Newton Howard is
Sure.
definitely one of the top one in Hollywood right now.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
But let's talk a little bit about how music works,
Okay.
because it is it's a combined effort. I would think this is a discussion that I've had with quite a few different songwriters and composers, that music, when it stands by itself, has to represent itself. But when you are composing for pictures on a screen or dialogue in someone's head, that becomes it ups the level from checkers to chess.
Okay.
And when you go to approach doing a score, what are you looking to achieve?
I am hoping to accompany the story being told to the best of my abilities. Um, whether that means more of my work or less of my work, it doesn't matter. Whatever best fits what's happening, in the story.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of people you can get caught up in the ego game pretty quick and think, oh my stuff's not present enough, it's not loud enough, and you'll try to force more of yourself into the project when less of me is just as fine, either way.
So you do make a conscious choice,
Oh yeah, for
depending
sure.
upon the actual story,
Oh yeah,
how much influence to put into it.
yeah. And to what extent, as far as instrumentation, stuff like that. I really try to just make sure that the score is set in the same place as the story, and just accent and accompany what the listener's hearing or what the viewer's seeing.
Now, I know there are several different combinations that go into making a a radio play or an audio drama. And one of the things is uh, you get your special effects and you get your narrators, your voice actors, and you have your score with those three things. Now, from what I've been told, usually you're on the back end of that process. That it's
Yeah.
your voice actors, then your FX, and then it goes into the actual score. Have you ever gone to the point where you've listened all the way through and you're like, wow, I really don't have to do a lot to this, but
Yeah.
in your head you're going, yeah, I have to do a consistent through line?
I definitely even just before this call, I was working on something that doesn't really require much of my presence in it. So I I definitely try to be conscious of that. Yeah, and I want to keep a consistent through line through the story, but that doesn't mean I have to add any more or less to it.
And um, I would think that the role of a composer, especially when you're doing these type of audio dramas, that you're not looking to be intrusive,
Right. Yeah.
just just to be able to accentuate.
Correct. Yeah, I do think there are times, and I'm trying to experiment with that more now, when intrusion is called for, in a sense that, how do I put this? Um, some more recent horror films, the music is far more abrasive and it's way more upfront, and it's almost used in a way that, almost like not necessarily a sound effect, but it's definitely present enough that the music itself is a scary factor of what you're seeing. So um, I've been trying to do that more, but for the most part, it's not intrusive. I want it to be noticed. I don't want it to just be bland. If I can make something, really pretty or something really scary or whatever it calls for, I don't. I definitely want to have a presence if there's room for me to, if that makes sense.
It does. Now, as far as I've always called music the mood enhancer,
Sure.
and if in the recent movies, especially the lower budget movies, like you'd see with like Blumhouse Films, who
Hmm.
does a lot of horror, um, they basically use the music as a punch in the face.
Okay.
Um, if you get where I'm going with this,
Yeah.
um, a lot of over exaggerated stings to
Right.
try to enhance the jump scares.
Yeah.
Have you ever gotten to a place where you've approached it like that?
Um, in audio drama, no, I don't think jump scares work very well in that setting, but there are definitely times where I've done short films where I think a lot of that is almost when the director, makes the film, uh, the jump scares are almost, it's really easy to tell when they want you to hit, those abrasive sounds and those big hits and stings and stuff like that. So I've definitely done it, but never in audio drama.
So you've done a couple of short films.
Yeah. I think
Did
I've
the
done like
process
16 or
change?
something like that. Oh, totally different. It's a totally different ball game. It's
Well,
not even the same.
can you dip into that a bit for me?
Yeah, I mean, it's there's a lot of things to think about with a film that you don't really have to think about with audio drama, I think. Excuse me. With the audio drama stuff, it's more, I just write as much music as I can and send it to the producers, and they place it wherever they think it fits. Um, with the film, it's such a, step-by-step process throughout the whole thing that you're basically aligning these cues up, and it needs to have consistency through it, but there's also a lot of times when you don't need any music, or you need a different type of music, or there's going to be some diegetic music or something like that. And I think more so in film than audio drama, the sound is important.
Mm-hmm.
I know that sounds weird, but if I work on a short film and they've got a really good sound guy, that makes my job way easier because there are moments when you can just sit in silence and not need any music. Whereas some other films, if they don't have a good budget for a good boom guy or whatever it is, they'll ask for wall to wall music to kind of hide any sound mistakes they might have.
Yeah, the audio imperfections, as it were.
Right.
I can completely understand that. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with my guest this evening, if you look down into the descriptor, there are Brandon links are down there. There's the official website, his Twitter, his Instagram, and of course, he's got music available on iTunes and Spotify. If you want to listen to him in action with audio dramas, I would always suggest to just go to YouTube, type in Brandon Boone and No Sleep Podcast or Chilling Tales for Dark Nights. Now, I know No Sleep doesn't do a lot on the YouTubes.
I don't think we have any. If you find No Sleep on YouTube, somebody stole it. So I don't
Yeah.
think we're on there at all.
So, yeah, you can always go to nosleeppodcast.com.
Right.
And I know there are not everything's free, but they do usually have a few stories that are complimentary. And
Yeah. Our model is like an hour to an hour and a half of free every week, and then 2.5 or so for the members. So still a lot of stuff out there, a lot of free content.
yeah, and honestly, there's a couple things for Chilling Tales for Dark Nights that are on the YouTubes. So I would recommend if you're looking for a good time and you're the kind of person who really likes to, listen to the drama and then go back and listen to the elements of it. That would definitely be good research if this is some type of field that you're looking to get into. Now, if we go just a little bit farther down,
Sure.
which do you prefer? Do you prefer doing the oral dramas or the visual dramas?
I like them. It's a cop out. I like them both, but for different reasons. It's interesting because so for no sleep is a dream job. I basically do whatever I want most of the time. I rarely ever get any feedback, and it's just me having fun, making music I like with people I like, and making a product that I'm really proud of. Um, but with no sleep, so if I have a 20-minute story on my hands, I write typically 4 pieces of music that range somewhere between 3 to 5 minutes. So I have these requirements I have to meet per piece of music, so the producers have enough music to fill out, the time span.
Sure.
So whereas with that, I get a lot of room to play because it's not easy to keep filling out 5 minutes for one track. It takes, that's a lot of experimentation to do that. Whereas, in a film, I might have a cue that is 15 seconds. So it's okay, how do I write music that is only going to last 15 seconds and be effective? It's a totally different thing.
So now, I know sometimes both composers and writers can sometimes feel pigeonholed by the content or the skeletal work that's presented to them. Do you still find it a challenge to write scary?
Um, a challenge. I don't know. I don't know if it's challenging. That's a hard question. I challenge myself. Um, just because I always want to get better. I'm still working at trying to grow as a musician and composer, so I want to keep getting better. So I don't like to just kind of go, oh, I know all the tricks to make something scary. That's easy. I don't want to fall into the traps of just relying on that to, make some spooky sounds, play something in a minor key or whatever, flat the second, and it's like, have these scary drone sounds. That's fine, but I really want to learn better instrumentation, orchestration, all these kinds of things to help me become a better, more well-rounded composer that does help with more than just horror. But at the same time, horror is also a pretty broad genre. So you've got, there's some horror that's, really sad. There's sci-fi, there's drama, there's monsters, there's old, Lovecraftian gods, all these kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why I like it so much is one day I'm doing music for this really intimate story about a family and the kid dies or whatever. So it's like this really sad, really intimate story. Um, that's more, somber than anything. And then all of a sudden I have a tentacle beast coming out of the ocean and killing people who are shipwrecked or something like that. So very different stories. They're both horror, but very different approaches.
So, what would you say so far that's been your most challenging piece to write?
Um, it's funny. I just finished one for a story for this week for No Sleep. Um, it's challenging in that I think it might be the best work I've done. Um, and all the challenges were brought on by the story's very unique. The premise is very unique, and uh, the challenges was more so trying to match this really unique story and also using influences from a film that I really like that has kind of a similar feel to it.
Would you mind explaining?
I don't know how much I can tell about the story because I don't
Well,
want to.
no, not the
Yeah.
story, but basically because of course there are subgenres to all horror.
Sure.
What would you say that subgenre was?
Definitely tragedy. It's a pretty tragic story, and loosely the main concept of it is this character was a oh, what's the word? Like a dressmaker? There's a word for that.
Seamstress.
Seamstress, sure. And the Johnny Greenwood score for Phantom Thread is one of my all-time favorite film scores, and so I've been listening to nothing but that for the past few days. Trying to use that as a jumping off point, and almost there's even parts of the music that's almost like an homage to Johnny's work on it. Um, and so I really wanted to try to use that as an influence, and I hope it comes through for the story at least.
Now, I of course have done some research because I do the interview thing, and I went through and checked out some of your scores that are on the YouTubes, which are the Chilling Tales stuff.
Sure.
And the one that I really enjoyed was the one you did. It was like a noir piece.
Okay.
Uh, it was. Wait a minute. Let me take a look at the Curious Case of Lolo Moreno.
Ah, yeah, I remember that one.
Um, I really liked how it was very bluesy, jazzy, New Orleans kind of style.
Yeah, I like that kind of stuff a lot. I have no background in any of that, but I think that may have been the first time that I tried to understand how that stuff worked and try to, to do that myself.
Now, as far as it goes, have you been able to basically roll this into something else? I mean, do you want to build it to where you become, like a Williams or a Horner?
I mean, yeah, I would love that, but I try not to get too wrapped up into considering the future. I'm very lucky in what I have right now. Over the next couple months, No Sleep will be my full-time job, which I'm extremely lucky for. And uh, we've got the tour coming up and stuff like that. So I figure if I just keep at it and I keep doing the work, more work will come and this career will continue for me. So I really try to stay in the moment. And I'm so swamped with work anyway as it is that I don't really have time to think about the future.
So, do you, since you're saying that this is your full time job now, um, it seems like that you're all in on this. So the
Oh yeah,
whole make sure you have a, don't quit your day job. You've
right.
already passed that step.
Slowly but surely, yeah.
And I know the old thing where it goes, if you've had, if you're doing something that you really enjoy, it never becomes a job.
Right.
Uh, um, at what point did you figure out that this was working out for you?
Um, that's tough. I think as more people were willing to give me money to write music. It sounds kind of like a shell of an answer, but it's true. It's a really unique feeling that a lot of my uh, musician friends don't, they don't have that chance, that opportunity. And, when people are willing to hire you and pay you money for your music, it's a really unique feeling. And you have this, um, you're now then beholden to them to write the music. So you have this, I don't know, the feeling is just you have this appreciation for your work, I guess, and that they keep on bringing you onto more projects. I don't know. I don't really know how to describe it. I don't know when I knew. I just kind of kept doing it.
Well, and uh, it's a rewarding thing to feed your ego when you see positive comments.
Sure. Been there
When
that.
you see the fans react um, positively to the things that you're doing, but
Right.
also, and not to be capitalist about it, it also feels good when people are feeding your wallets
Right.
as well,
Right. Yeah.
because
It's a tricky
once
situation
again,
to fall
that's
in that hole.
confirmation.
Right. Oh, absolutely.
And I do want to make sure and let everybody know that at the top of the hour, um, we will be taking questions from our audience. So please feel free and start thinking. And then when we get a couple minutes close to the top of the hour, we will start feeding those questions in as they come. Now, you've got you're firmly in with No Sleep Podcast.
Yeah.
If you had a chance to work with another company without diminishing quality for No Sleep Podcast, is there any company that you'd like to work with, or perhaps maybe just another composer to work with to help refine your craft even further?
Oh man. I don't think I'd want to work for any other like podcast company or any other audio drama company necessarily. I mean, I get hired to write theme songs, and that's fine. I like doing that. But as far as like on a week to week basis, I think it's just no sleep for me.
Mm-hmm.
But if I had to choose a different company or something like that, I think I would. I would obviously love to work with Mike Flanagan and the Newton brothers, who did the Haunting of Hill House and that kind of thing. I think they're awesome. What they're doing is awesome. I would kill for a chance to work on like an Ari Aster film, like Midsummer or Hereditary.
Okay.
And like the last two composers he's worked with have both been incredible. Bobby Krillick, I think, the Hacks and Cloak guy, and Colin Stetson, I think, who did Hereditary. Just those kind of really experimental soundtracks, I think, are really cool.
I was gonna say I just recently saw Hereditary,
Oh,
and
super good.
I, I'll be honest with you, not a great movie,
Really,
but
you didn't like it?
the combined elements help to make it better.
Yeah, I think it's the first movie in a long time that legitimately scared me, and I think the music played a big part of that.
No, and I think so too. So let's talk a little bit about that. The importance of music. Like we were saying, um, talking about how like the Blumhouse productions basically kind of use it like a tool to hammer
Right.
you over the head with, oh, this is what you're supposed to be scared about.
Sure.
Uh, the Tell me how you approach it and how you believe that tool should be used in your toolbox.
The tool of bashing someone over the head or telling them how to feel.
Basically influencing people, because I think really that's what music's role is when you're talking about movies. Basically, being able to
Sure.
influence people and their emotions.
I think going back to the accompaniment idea is really important, and um, I actually had the chance to hang out with the Newton brothers for a little bit a couple years ago, and one of the things they told me was, when you've got like a really sad, uh, emotional scene, pull the music back, let the actors handle it. They're there for a reason, and you don't have to sit there and try to just ham it up because that they're crying on the screen or whatever. Yeah, you can have some really powerful moments without music, and that's fine. And there's other times when you want to make sure that you're not what they call Mickey Mousing it too much, and you're playing the sound of the screen too much, and you kind of want to be loose about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I think it's on a case by case process anyway. But I think kind of playing loose with it is more important than trying to be like on the nose.
And I apologize because apparently somebody felt like they really needed to mow their lawn before the sun went down. So if somebody's hearing that, I certainly apologize. Now, personally, do you find yourself, when you're on a project, do you find yourself feeling like you need to pull back more or push forward more?
I think it all depends. There are some stories where, going with the audio drama example, where I can't help myself and it's a big emotional scene and I really want to be there. I really want to help the payoff, and
Mm-hmm.
I'll push in more. And then there's other times, if it's more desolate or hopeless, I think pulling the music back um, kind of helps set in that feeling, if that makes
N-
sense.
Now, we'll go with both here, as far as scoring film and scoring audio dramas. Um, do you find yourself feeling like that you are a definitive partner in the process?
I like to think so. Um, a lot of people say good music it goes unnoticed, or it's you don't really notice the music. And I think that sucks. I hate that idea. I definitely want to be, why else am I here if I'm not contributing to it? I definitely want to be part of the show.
Yeah, well, I mean, I can kind of see where they're coming from because when you go to lay down every night in your bed, a lot of times you don't consider the pillow that you put your head on.
Sure.
But the pillow is one of the most important things, but it's rarely ever noticed.
Hmm. That's a good point.
And I think, I think that's just from my own opinion. I think that's personally what the whole comfort spot is. With I think music is a comfort, that it's there to help key emotions, but still it's there to do the suspension of disbelief.
Sure.
And I think it's one of the most important things when it comes to when it comes to seeing a film, because you can see this. I mean, even movies like uh, let's take for example Avengers Endgame. I mean,
Okay.
you can hear the trumpets kick up in the time when all the heroes are there and taking its stand.
Right. I have not seen it.
Oh, okay.
But I know what you're talking about. I'm sure that's how it happens. I have a 3-year-old and I work too much, so I've not been able to get out to the theater for that one yet.
Yeah, and it's kind of like that. You've got a great meal, but just a little more salt, just a little more pepper that you dispense
Right.
makes that meal all the much better.
Yeah, especially in a thing where, if you've got superheroes assembling together, you want that big triumphant feel. It wouldn't feel the same without any music.
Yeah,
Be
and
way less dramatic.
honestly, it's it is kind of the je ne vu, the never seen. That music does provide that complement.
Sure.
Even with like the Coen brothers, they use music very sparingly,
Yeah, barely. Yeah.
but that is for an effect.
Right. That definitely keeps it very tense.
Yeah. Um, has there ever been a point to where you've had a producer come back to you and say, "Yeah, I think we need to pull that back a little bit"?
Yeah, certainly. Not so much in No Sleep, just because I don't have control over like the volume or the placement of the music. That's all the producers anyway. But on the film side, I've definitely had people, say, "Oh, this is a little too much. Can we thin this out a little bit? Can we pull this back?" Um, they'll give me, this sound in particular just coming through like a little too much. I don't want to be that noticed, and that's fine.
And do you find those critiques beneficial to use later down the road?
I think so. I think it's also, um, it's hard like down the road. It's just because my experience with short films, I think I've done maybe 15 or something like that at this point, and most of the time, uh, they just give me the film and just let me do whatever I want. That's like our starting point. Is just I kind of give them a rough sketch. Like, here's what I was thinking. Here's the layout of the movie, and then they'll send me notes. What did they like, what they didn't like, and then it's a very touch and go as you're going along. I like to keep, even though I work, it's all working remotely from these directors and stuff. I like to keep in touch along the process to make sure I'm not gonna waste 4 hours on something that they're not gonna like before I update them again.
So, how many hours in the week would you say you spend creating music?
Oh, shoot. Probably 30 to 40.
And out of that 30 to 40, what do you eventually end up sending off?
Um, like for no sleep, it's typically about 2.5 hours of music. But
Now,
it's hard because a lot of the time I can write a track pretty quick just
mm,
because I've done it like over 3,000 times for no sleep alone.
wow.
Um, so I'm pretty quick with all of my macros and key commands and stuff. But there's also a lot of times where um, I'm just thinking about it. I won't be near a piano or anything or a keyboard or in my studio. I'll be out and about, and I'm just thinking of melodies and that kind of thing, and just trying to clear my head and trying to, because if I just come in and sit down, muscle memory is going to take over, and I'm going to play something I've already done before, I think. So I'll typically go out for a little bit, and I'll just think in music and try to write in my head a little bit.
So, where would you say that? Do you have like a little getaway spot or a certain place that's outside your home or outside your studio where you find a, a creative thing?
It's going to sound weird, but probably the gym. I exercise a lot, and I think that helps me keep my head clear. And plus, you can listen to whatever you want while you're working out, so you can keep the ideas coming in.
So you got the Stairmaster going and you got the headphones in?
Something like that, yeah.
Now, we are coming close to the top of the hour. So, ladies and gentlemen in the chat, if you have questions for Brandon Boone, please feel free to start loading them up now. We'll ask them as they come. And, of course, if you're looking to check out Brandon, we have his official website down there. We also have his Twitter, Instagram, and if you're looking to sample or perhaps buy, there is the iTunes and the Spotify links. My links are down there as well, but just to point out, as I do at the top of every hour, I do have a prescription for additional entertainment below all of that, and that is for people that I like to watch when I'm not being a streamer. These are the people that I enjoy. They may not have a high sub count, but I think they're worthwhile to take a listen to. And what would you say, because different people have different ambitions in life, have different goals. What are you looking to achieve ultimately with your music?
Um, I am looking to achieve a comfortable living, doing something I love that is creatively fulfilling. Is that is that too much to ask?
No,
It sounds like the dream, right? For
no,
those
that's a
little,
thing. That counts.
yeah.
Now, have you ever entertained the fact, when you're sitting back on a lazy day, laying in the hammock, just dreaming your dreams? Have you ever seen yourself up on the stage accepting an award for what you do?
Oh, I mean, yeah, I would love that. I try to, as I say, I don't try to put too much stock in awards and things like that. But it does feel really nice when you're recognized for your work. So I've got like eight or something like that, like best scores for the short films I've done. And so I don't like to think about it too much, but it does feel really nice when you win something like that. So yeah, I mean, winning an Oscar one day would be awesome, but who knows?
Well, yeah. I mean, if we take a look at the Oscars, the person who's won the most of them is, of course, John Williams,
Sure.
and he is a composer. So,
He's done a lot of
um,
good stuff.
yeah, yeah. I mean, if that's somebody that you aspire to be, then that's it's big shoes to fill. But at least um, that he didn't automatically start out winning Oscars.
Sure.
Um,
You're
every, every
Johnny Williams, the jazz pianist.
yeah, I mean every top composer always has had humble beginnings.
Sure.
Let's run over to the chat here and check out some questions if you're up for it.
Absolutely.
Medicare Fembot asks, do you does your own music ever haunt you in your sleep?
Oh, that's an interesting question. It doesn't haunt me, but I have had questions answered in my sleep, if that makes sense. I've definitely come out of sleep with something clicking. A song I've been working on outside of this is like my own personal music project for a long time. I could never get the rhythm right, and I woke up one morning and I understood how I was supposed to be counting the song out, and it made sense. So, haunting, no, but it has helped.
Hmm. Now, no, so basically, it's kind of like a mathematician when they go to sleep. I've heard more than once that they dream of the problems, the
Yeah,
mathematical problems that they have, and
yeah,
sometimes you can figure it out that way.
yeah. It's by no means a common occurrence or anything, but I don't remember most of my dreams, so when I do, I hope they're helpful.
No. Now Ear Juice asks, what DAW
Yeah.
software do you use? And
Um,
what is your stance on using licensed samples with professional music?
First question, I use Logic Pro. I'm an Apple guy. I'm just kind of embedded in that universe now, so um, Logic is where I am. By using licensed samples, I don't. I guess maybe he means uh, like sample loops or something like that. I don't personally use them. I use sample libraries for orchestras and stuff like that, but I don't for my own personal. I don't have any issue with people using sampled um, things like that. Uh, but for my workflow, it's faster for me just to write the music myself.
Yeah, honestly, I don't have any problems with it either, as long as it becomes original content. Like
Sure.
when the RZA scored Kill Bill.
Right.
Um, I thought he took just basic samples, and he actually had actual music, and not just repetition of how many different samples can I connect together to make a song.
Right. Yeah, I have no problem with that. If I were better at it, I would probably use them, but I'm not. So I don't. It's not even part of my world, really.
True, true. I can say that everything that I have listened to has been original. I've never listened to something that you've done, and this is extremely complimentary because I've watched a lot of movies. I've listened to a lot of audio. Um, I've never run into something that you've composed where I've said, "Oh, well, that's derivative of this."
Oh, thank you very much. I try to, if I ever start writing something and I'm like, that's a little close to such and such, I'll change it.
Yeah, that's one of the questions that I had asked um, when I was talking to Harry Manfredini. It's like you've written over 100 different scores. How do you not duplicate yourself? And he's like, well, I just remember what I did before and try not to do that.
Right. It's tough. I think I probably have. I'm sure I have with 3,000 pieces for No Sleep. I guarantee I've done it at least close, something close to another thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, and honestly, I think of composers like I think of the standard typical artists, because you get these type of artists like, yeah, but like the Beatles or like Rolling Stones, and they're known for a particular kind of sound, but nobody's ever basically accused them of being derivative of themselves,
Sure. I
because
mean,
it's their sound, it's their
right.
style.
I think that's a good thing. You know a John Williams score when you hear it. You know a Danny Elfman when you hear it. Stuff like that. I think it's important to have a distinguished style.
Although honestly, I'll never forgive him for the Batman soundtrack.
Oh, you don't like it?
Oh, I thought that soundtrack was horrible.
Oh, I love the Batman soundtrack.
Ugh. Um, but I really liked what he did later on, and this is way later on for the Wanted soundtrack.
Oh, sure, yeah.
I thought
I haven't seen that in forever, but I remember it being good.
I thought it was very understated.
Yeah.
Um, which is, I guess composers are kind of like ninjas. You know, get in, do maximum damage, and get out without anybody noticing you.
Sure.
Um,
That explains the outfit I wear when I'm working.
do you have the tabbies too?
Sure.
um, Politipod asks, "Have you ever seen a ghost?"
No. I don't believe in ghosts or anything. I know that's not a popular opinion amongst No Sleep fan base, but nope, never seen a ghost.
Well, no, he's a very big No Sleep podcast fan.
Oh, awesome. Well, thank you. Hopefully
Um,
he'll still listen even though I haven't seen a ghost.
but you could say in the Ray Parker Jr. parlance that you ain't afraid of no ghosts either.
That's absolutely true. I'm not afraid of them.
Earjuice is asking, what hardware do you use, if any, specific to your composing?
Oh, I'm a gear nut. Where to start? I mean, I can just list off everything I use if you want. My studio.
Honestly, there's a lot of aspiring composers that are either listening now or will be listening on the replay.
Okay.
So any depth of detail that you want to go into, that's fine.
Then the one thing I would say about not quitting your day job is I was fortunate in that I was working, and as No Sleep, became more popular and he was paying me more. I've reinvested every bit of money I've made from music back into music. So where I started with a laptop and $100 little M Audio studio monitors and like a $100 MIDI keyboard and no software. Now my hardware is I've got Genelec studio monitors. I've got a Mo2 828X interface. My hardware is I currently have um, one modular synthesizer sampler machine that I'm building. I have a second one, which is the Make Noise shared system. I've got the Folktech Resonant Garden. Then my synthesizers are I've got a Moog Voyager XL that I use a lot. I've got a Dave Smith Prophet Rev 2. Um, I've also got an Electron analog rhythm drum machine, but that's for other projects. It's not really used in scoring very much. Then I've also got the J.P. Cooper, whatever his name is, Fader Master MIDI controller, and the Complete Control keyboard, as well as loads of sample libraries and sound libraries to draw from. Oh,
Now,
and a bass guitar and a theremin and a cello.
you have a theremin?
I'm looking around. Yeah, I do.
Oh, very nice. That's something that's something that I feel that if I spend enough time, that would become my actual instrument.
Well, the one that I got is really cool. I'm a huge fan for Moog's products, the synthesizer company. I actually was just there this last weekend, and their Theramini is it's like the components are digital, so you can actually choose what key you want to be in, and it'll kind of quantize it for you. So you can choose how much of glide you want between the notes to get that pitch bending, but it can still keep you in key, which is really fun. It's a good way to learn it, I think.
Oh yeah, I want the big bulky thing since I'm a
Yeah, the
boomer.
old school one. Yep.
Now, I I have talked to quite a few people who do the behind the scenes once the audio tracks have been laid for the voice actors, and some people as composers have been asked by producers if they would do the sound effects as well. Are you much into the FX?
Oh no, 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 not at all. Not in the slightest bit. Never
Be-
have, never will. I don't like that at all. I don't like any other aspect of this process other than the music, if I'm being honest.
well,
It seems horrible to me.
yeah, because it seems apples and oranges.
I think it is. If someone left me up to do the sound effects, they'd be terrible. It's not what I'm good at.
Fair enough.
I
Um,
try to stay in my lane.
and they're also asking if you believe in moth people and their attempt to take over the world.
Now that I do believe in.
There you go. Uh, Politipod asks, do you have a favorite creepypasta?
I don't know. I don't know what qualifies as a creepypasta. I'm not familiar enough with what I don't know exactly what the requirements are to be a creepypasta. But as far as no sleep stories go, um, I was a really big fan of our most recent season finale, Whitefall, by C.K. Walker. That story blew me away.
Yeah, I'm. Actually, we've been trying to get CK on, unfortunately, because we worked a little bit together in the past, and she's just busy with the
Yeah,
second season of The Haunting of Hill House.
yeah, she's busy being, Hollywood now.
Oh yeah, she's all Hollywood,
Yep,
but she deserves it. She's a
she
good writer.
absolutely does. She's incredible.
God bless Rebecca.
Yep.
Um, okay, let's see. I'm trying to find one that isn't one of our regular Uh, one of our regulars making their regular goofies. Because Irate's just asking, "What does it hurt when I pee?" You should already know the answer to that.
Go to the doctor.
Yeah, yeah. If you're having that trouble, if it lasts more than 4 to 6 hours, then consult professional help.
That's right.
Let's see here. Actually, Irate Prostate asks, have you ever had a work or a song basically create itself?
That's an interesting question. I'm not sure I know. Uh, do you mean like using like generative sound techniques, or do you mean more of metaphysical sense of like the music's just I'm the vessel and it's coming through me. I don't know.
Um, I would think something that you start kind of like you're you're trying to put together a puzzle that's upside down,
Okay.
and the pieces just automatically start fitting.
I think that is probably almost every single time I work because I'll basically start with a really basic idea and then I'll start to kind of get an idea of how I want it to sound as it's kind of taking form.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's less me trying to add to the piece of music and it's more of the piece of music being revealed to me, I guess. That sounds, I don't know, kind of weird.
Honestly,
Um,
no, it does not, because that's part of the artistic creative process.
and it's a really it's actually a really cool thing when you're finally done and you think, wow, this is actually I didn't have this intention coming into it, but this song kind of revealed itself in this way, and you know you'll be really happy with it, and you feel it's a weird feeling because you don't feel like you actually made it. You just feel like it was always there, and you just had to kind of excavate around it to reveal it.
Well, because I've heard the criticism more than once, where people are like, "Well, why don't you just put the notes together? You know, just drop the
Sure.
notes in." And it's like it's not that way. It's a creative process. It's artistic. It's not a mechanical thing, to where it's like, okay, you know, we're not trying to take a hook from someplace else, change it just a little bit, and make it your own. You've got a completely blank canvas,
Right.
and you've got all the paints in the world, and you're staring at the palette saying, okay, which color am I laying down now? Well, you know what? A little bit of red seems to be right,
That's right.
and you just go from there. I have a problem with people who think that making music is an easier process than painting a picture or writing a story. I think all of them have their basic challenges and deadfalls,
Sure.
but all of it takes a focused creativity, if that
Sure.
makes sense.
Yeah. That's one thing
Uh,
I struggle with the idea of it being. It doesn't ever feel hard, just because it's more of just trial and error anyway.
mm-hmm.
So it's less me thinking like I'm never frustrated like why can't I do this? It's more of oh that didn't work. Okay, I'm gonna try this. Okay, that did work. Now, how do I add to that?
Well, and can you talk a little bit about the partnership of the unknown, which is kind of what I call when I do my writing. Basically, you know what you want to write, but when you get to certain points uh, on your pathway down to writing it, that things kind of reveal themselves to you.
Yeah, I think it all kind of I always start a piece the same way with just a progression. So I'll decide what key I'm going to be in, like E minor or something like that, and I'll think, okay, I want to use these four chords. Um, I'll modulate this one chord so it's out of key, so it's got this little bit of a weirder feel to it or something like that. And then with those chords, I'll try to um, just bring in different instruments and just kind of start building around that. And then because I have so much music to do, I do a lot of looping. So I'll set like a really long looping thing, and I'll just keep adding to it and adding to it and adding as many instruments to it as I can until I feel like I have enough there for a piece of music, and then I'll start arranging those little pieces and editing them one at a time and trying to place them along the timeline to try to make the piece of music work. So a lot of it is just starting with one sound. If I can get one sound down as a starting point, then I'm just off to the races and adding to it.
And how many times have you run into putting your music together where you stop and go, "Oh no, that sounds too much like this. That sounds too much like a hook that someone else has done," and have the urgency to scrap it and go back from the start.
I think that's happened to me three times that I can think of. One was actually for a CK Walker story forever ago. Uh, I was playing the that main motif from Requiem for a Dream,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, I was like, well, "This sounds familiar. I've heard this before," and it really took me a minute to figure out. Um, Another time, I definitely stole from Beethoven, had to change that, and another one was Star Wars. So all three of those times, I've had to go back and edit it.
Well, and honestly, that's going to happen because music is a part of our culture, and sometimes it bleeds into your brain subconsciously.
Sure. And there's also a lot of like, music. So much of it is following certain patterns and things, and so much of it is mathematical that you're going to eventually start landing on the same note choices that someone else has. And you just gotta
Well,
make sure not to do that.
well, I'm going to have to say that the the math that you're speaking of, um, I don't think that I've seen that in what you do.
Oh, I just mean math as far as like considering the patterns of the scale and that kind of thing, and how you would build chords together and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Basing a melody off of a chord structure, you're kind of limited to what notes you're going to pick at first, and I think it's really easy to fall into those traps.
Well, and I understand how you can foundationally build something, but the foundations of most every house that you'll take a look at on a street are pretty much the same.
Sure.
But the houses usually aren't cookie cutter,
Right.
and I don't see any type of uh, I don't see any type of literally going to the cookie cutter formation. You built the foundation, but how you put up the walls and how many stories that you have and how many windows.
Right.
Yeah, you're going to find that foundational thing that runs throughout any type of scoring, but it depends on what you build on that foundation, which makes it unique, which makes it stand out.
Well, yeah. Thank you. I appreciate that. I think that's a good thing to note that everyone's working with the same elements to an extent. You know, like with the house analogy. All houses are pretty much made out of the same materials. Every orchestra, the instruments play the same range of frequencies in every piece. It's all how you choose to use those to be different.
Yeah, you compare, a John Williams piece to an Elmer Bernstein piece.
Sure.
If they're using the same orchestra, but yeah, they're completely the same instruments, but they are using them in a specific and unique way.
Right.
And I have to tell you this: Irate Prostate is an old rock and roller and a musician.
Oh, okay.
So he's asking, what is the oldest synth you have?
The oldest. I don't have many vintage or old synths. Just because I don't ever want to deal with like components going bad and having it repaired or anything like that. I would like to have a Juno at some point if I can. Um, but my oldest one is probably my Moog Voyager XL. It's not necessarily old, but it's a Moog Voyager, which goes all the way back to the 70s if you think about the Model D. So um, that's definitely my oldest instrument or synth rather.
The first synth that I was ever introduced to was a Polymoog.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I'm old.
Those are great. Those are hard to find.
And the guy who showed it to me could do essentially anything on it. One of his favorite things was he had recorded a cough on it because they were doing Black Sabbath covers, and he was doing Sweet Leaf. So yeah, that's how that one came about. By the way, if anyone is unfamiliar with Brandon's work, please take a look down in the descriptors. Not only is his official website there, but of course the Twitter, the Instagram, and if you're looking to purchase some of his music, which is something I would suggest, please check out the link for iTunes or Spotify.
One thing I would add that normally kind of gets lost in like where all my links are and stuff is my Bandcamp page. It has all the music I've ever done for No Sleep, and it's all free to stream.
Oh,
So if there's ever a soundtrack anyone wants to check out, it's all on there. If you want to download it, it makes me charge like $1, but everything else is you can just play it.
Now, have you ever come to listening some other creepypastas or and I'm not going to mention any names, but there are a lot of people out there who use I guess I can only describe it as canned music or
like
royalty-free music.
Yeah. I know the names.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, do you think they're doing a disservice to themselves?
No, I don't think so. I think everyone tries to find their own way in this kind of thing, and I wouldn't. I've also tried to look into the library music thing. It's just because I can write music really fast. I thought it might be a lucrative way to do it, but it just hasn't. I very much try to just follow the path that kind of presents itself to me. So because of that, I haven't really bothered with it. But I wouldn't, if it works for somebody else, then more power to them.
Because
some of them are very popular.
Yeah, because one of the things that Harry Manfredini turned me on to early was that he's a part of a website called gratislibrary.com.
Okay.
And he puts hundreds of tracks up of stuff that he just thought of. He put it together and he threw it up there.
Right.
And he's like, anybody who wants to use it can use it.
Right.
As long as you say where it came from.
Exactly. And I have no problem with any of that. I think that's I've talked to some directors and some, if the budget doesn't allow you to hire a composer for your project and you need something, go for it.
Now, do you think that, and I know coming as a writer, I've had people like, I want to read your stuff, I want to put it up. Do you think that the composers are a little more accepting in their profession when it comes to saying, oh yeah, you can use this piece?
I think it just depends on where they're coming from. Like for me personally, they're not supposed to because my music has been written for somebody else for their project. So if somebody uses a track that I use for No Sleep, I think that's illegal, but because I've not given any permission for that. But if you have your own library music, I think a lot of composers are out there just want to be heard, and if any means to be heard is important to a musician. So I definitely understand that.
Now you can tell me that this isn't off limits, but
All right.
when you score for places like No Sleep or Chilling Tales, do you retain the rights?
Yeah. For at least No Sleep, I do. He lets me, that's why it's on my Bandcamp page, and I get whatever money that makes and all that kind of stuff. It's never been, it's always been pretty loose between me and David, and I think he likes it that way.
Yeah, I can see that. I've done.
It's tricky. It's not that there's not really any legality to it, I don't think, but the music is written for No Sleep, so it belongs to No Sleep, but I'm allowed to publish it myself, for an album or something like that.
Yeah, with the writer, it's a lot simpler. For me, they retain the rights to the audio adaptation, and I retain the rights to all the written.
Right, you're like renting out the story almost. That
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah.
And I've been pleased that David has run a few of my stories because I really do think that he's got a great team in house that turns out a product that's better than what I thought in my mind.
Yeah, he definitely has a knack for bringing. It's pretty insane the people he's brought together, to build his team. Um, I mean, it's been over the course of years and years, but that's one of my favorite things about it is the people I get to work with. I work with some incredibly talented people.
And I'll shout some of them out. Jeff Clement, Jesse
Absolutely.
Cornett.
Phil
Um,
McKay, other producer. Those three guys are
awesome.
my
Yeah.
production buds.
Yeah. And personally, do you feel that these are people who actually care and that's what makes the product better?
Oh, yeah, they definitely care. I think everyone on the team cares. Um, but we all want to deliver the best thing we can, and um, I don't know too much about what the actors, do behind the scenes or whatever, but I know the production team, um, they've all got their different strategies, but every one of the producers is incredibly, what's the word I'm looking for? They're incredibly invested in it, and they want it to be the best thing it can be.
Well, and I don't see Jeff. I don't see Jesse. I don't see you just there to cash a paycheck.
No, 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 not at all.
I see a lot of passion in what you guys do, and even the voice actors.
Yeah.
And I'm not disrespecting the voice actors at all because I think you can tell when somebody cares, when somebody wants to have that thing that may become not necessarily viral, but eternal in the rewatches and people who want to listen to it again and again. The people who want to download it and want to say to their friends that, oh my God, you have to listen to this.
Yeah, I totally, and I think, each of us come from the point of our name's going to be on it, and you don't want to do yourself a disservice by just phoning it in and having whatever, you know. There's
Uh,
definitely some projects are definitely more work than others and take more attention, but I think at the end of the day, you always want to be proud of what you're putting out.
well, Politipod is asking, um, what are your favorite podcasts aside from your own?
um, I listened to shoot, let me pull it up really quick. I'm blanking. I listened to my brother and me is one of my favorite ones. Um, listen to Joe Rogan's podcast like everybody else. I listen to a lot of fantasy football podcasts, comedy podcasts. I don't listen to many audio drama or horror podcasts. Um, mostly because I really have a hard time keeping up week to week and I forget who characters are and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so if I am going to listen to an audio drama, I save it up and I do it all at once. That way I cannot forget who characters are.
See, that's I play something called the Joe Rogan game, which is the moment he says the phrase DMT, I automatically tune out.
That's when I turn it up.
Because I know he's that stoned at that point, and I'm like, okay, I'm done.
That's hilarious.
By the way, Irate does say, like you started writing it, it completes quickly, organically. Perfect answer, Brandon.
Yeah, thank you.
Um, yeah, I think unlike anything else, and I'm a writer, been doing it for a long, long time. That I would think that music itself, when you get that completion, when you get that note that resonates in your head, that's as organic as you can actually get it, because of course music doesn't require speech. It doesn't require an actual language.
Right.
It's pretty much a language unto itself.
Sure. Definitely a way to look at music as a language.
I mean, you can communicate to somebody when the war drums are playing,
Sure.
as opposed to uh, you get in Star Wars 3 where they're just doing luck luck.
Right.
because they're happy. The Ewoks are enjoying themselves.
Right.
Um, Ear Juice is saying, I still think you should just do chilling and talking streams like the other day, but maybe pick a topic. I don't know if that's for me.
Oh, for me, if it's I did a if they're on the No Sleep fan page, I did like a Q&A on there where I just kind of had people hang out and ask me questions while I was working on music. I wish I could do more stuff like that. I just don't have time. That's what it comes down to. I
What?
keep myself really busy.
Well, do you remember Trent Reznor back in the 90s where he set up like the little cam in his hotel?
Yeah,
And
I do. I vaguely remember that. Yeah.
yeah, he would sit back and just sit there and compose music.
Yeah.
Uh, I thought that was fascinating. I was riveted to it.
Yeah, I think it's and that's kind of what I try to do with the fan page is like I'll occasionally just kind of let them be present while I work. And it's a fun way for me to engage with people while I'm still getting work done.
And um and coming from a blind perspective, how important is it for you to interact with the people who are fans of what you do?
How important is it? I don't know. I think that's more for them to decide. How much do they want me involved, you know? It's I'm not a super public person. I'm pretty introverted. Um, and like I said, I work a lot, but um, that doesn't mean that I'm not willing to talk or, someone shoots me an email, I'll talk to them or, I'll engage. I have no problem. I love engaging with the fans. I love to hear what they think, most of the time. And and it just depends on, what they want from me, I guess.
Well, yeah, because I'll be honest with you. I never refer to my audience as fans.
Yeah, it feels weird to say that.
Yeah, because fans is short for fanatical, and I'm just hoping that they're digging on everything that I'm doing.
Right. Yeah, that's I think that's a healthier way to look at it is uh, just people who enjoy your work.
Brad Young asked, and this is an interesting question. What's your thoughts on infrasound?
Uh, I'm not, I'm not sure what that is.
I'll be honest. I don't know what it is either.
I wonder if I can do it.
Because I'm the only instrument I play is my voice.
Oh, okay, okay. This was what I thought. Like sub hearing frequencies. Um, there are people who say that they use it. You don't even hear it, but it's present, and that makes you scared. That's what I thought he was talking about. Okay, yeah. So infrasound. Um, I've never intentionally tried to do anything like that. I don't know if it would even work in an audio format only, or if it has to be a certain, subwoofer speaker at a theater or whatever it is. I mean, the honest answer is I've never really paid much mind to it.
Oh, and yeah, I'm old enough. One of the first movies that ever played with the subwoofer experience was a movie called Roller Coaster back in the 70s. And what they did was they had basically listed it as kind of a sense around, but it was the subwoofers. I mean, they had huge stacks in the back of the theater, and they would rumble, and it was all I guess it would be called infrasound, and you would see more people going to the bathroom during that movie.
That's funny. It says it's like lower than 20 hertz, so it might even I think it's below human hearing, which I don't know. I do love subwoofers though. I know it's not necessarily infrasound, but when we do our live shows, uh, I love to make the room shake. So I am a fan of that.
So, are you currently going to be touring with No Sleep?
Yeah, this will be our third national tour.
Now, I'm excited about this. Can you fill the audience in on it?
Yeah, so basically what we do is if you go to the nosleeppodcast.com/tour, there's all the cities and where we're playing and where to get tickets and all that kind of thing. But basically, a live show consists of the voice actors are in front of me on stage. I'm behind them, and I have my keyboard and laptop and controller and that kind of setup. And we just do the stories live. And I've got a bunch of music that I can trigger and play on top of and kind of improvise with. And we'll do. I think this tour we're planning to do like maybe 3 main stories, and then we'll let each then like do like some like shorter, smaller stories afterwards. I think.
Hmm.
I'm not exactly sure. We're still working out the details on that, but the main idea is to have the voice actors front and center. I'm in the back, and we just kind of do exactly what you would hear on a podcast, but live. They're they're kind of they're not like moving around or anything, but they are kind of they'll point at each other and make faces and kind of they're still acting, but they're just at a microphone.
It's basically readers' theater.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Now, do you have any availability to improvise any of the music, or?
Oh yeah, certainly. A lot of it is, and there's been times where last year we were like 5 shows into the tour, and I kind of discovered a melody that I really liked, and so I just used that. I would play that live for certain parts for the rest of the tour. So up until that point, I was still trying to figure out what I really wanted to do and improvising until I landed on something that I thought was exceptional and stuck with it. But yeah, it's basically I have like tracks kind of laid out on my laptop for each story, and I know what key they're in. So I'll just be like, oh, this is in C minor, so I'll play that. Then I have my keyboard, and I'll just play the notes to go along with what's going on.
But there is the availability for some discovery then.
Oh, sure, absolutely. I would.
Nice.
A lot of it will be different for each show. Not sure how many people would notice it, but I definitely change it up a bit.
I always think the 8:30 show is different from the 5:30 show.
Right. Yep. Very much. Well, not very much, but somewhat.
Medicare Fembot is saying, ask him to say Big Up's Liquid Richard. I can send him a sample on Twitter later if he wants.
Big Ups Liquid Richard. I guess I was asking a question almost. Big Ups Liquid Richard. I don't know what any of that means.
Politipod is asking, what's up with the Nashville date? Because I want to go and I can't get tickets.
That is above my pay grade. I don't know. I don't know I don't know if there's a problem with those tickets or not, or if they're on sale yet. I mean, it was all just announced yesterday or Sunday.
I was gonna say that's a David question.
Yeah. I am purely the music guy. It's above me.
Yeah. Another. I just work here, folks.
Yeah.
Nurse Wicked asks, have you run into writer's block when it comes to a particular story?
Oh, absolutely. And that's the point when I leave the studio and I go away and I just kind of marinate on the story for a little bit until something kind of makes itself known, I guess. A lot of the times I'll just go. So my studio is my basement in my house,
Mm-hmm.
and in our living room we have a piano. So I'll just go up there and get away from all the electronics and everything and all of my work area and just kind of start fiddling on the piano if I'm not going to leave the house.
Do you ever hit the gym?
Oh yeah, I mean I go to the gym like every day, so I'll definitely use that time to start thinking of some new stuff.
Yeah, because honestly, I could see in the gym where you would be able to isolate yourself.
Yeah.
Unless you got that lifting buddy with you.
Yeah, and it's weird you say that. I like the isolation of it. I was doing jujitsu for a while, and I did not like the community aspect because it wasn't my me time anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went back to just lifting weights and kind of that seclusion. And I've got this high energy, and you're moving a lot and everything. And I think it really helps the ideas flow.
Yeah, and really, it's one of those wherever you find the availability to get that, because everything nowadays is going to have kind of like that soldier ant mentality. There's always going to be bodies around
Right.
where you can find a way to drop the curtain, to be able to isolate yourself, to
Oh
focus
yeah.
better.
And I'm sure I look like a maniac in there because I'm just in my own little world.
Uh, and Polipod says, "Ugh." Well, yeah, dude, go talk to the people who are actually selling the tickets. This is the man who's just helping to create the magic.
Yeah, I don't know anything about. I don't know what's happening with the Nashville show. I hope you can make it. It'll be a cool show.
Yeah, unfortunately, they're not going to be anywhere near me.
Yeah,
So
I'm still waiting for Cincinnati to get a date one of these days. I'd love to play in my hometown,
I would go there.
but that's all the tour management staff and out of our hands.
Well, and I would think that Columbus, being the big college town that it is,
Yeah, well,
that
the past 2 years we played in Cleveland. This is the first year we're not in Ohio at all.
dude, Cleveland, way too far.
Yeah, it's a good three and a
Yeah,
half hours from you.
but yeah, apparently there's no difference between Toledo and Dayton.
Oh God, yeah, I heard of that. Unreal.
um, Polipod is saying, well, I'll try. If not, DC is next on my list.
Oh yeah, I mean, DC is always an awesome show. There's a lot of authors who come to that show typically, and it's a good time.
Well, and he's also saying Louisville, which I would think that would be a decent place to do a show.
Oh yeah, I don't think we're going anywhere. Um, I know it's a big college town, but it's always like based on routing and where we'll be anyway. It's the 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 higher ups at the management company handle that.
Yeah, and I know Kevin Smith loves to hit Indianapolis.
Yeah, I think we were originally going to do Indy, but for whatever reason it didn't happen.
Well, yeah, I can get there in 90 minutes, but good
Right,
God,
exactly. Yeah,
everything else is like a 5.5 hour drive.
I know it. Yeah, I
But
guess probably Chicago would be the closest, and that's still got to be 5 hours.
yeah, and I don't have a registered firearm, so I don't want to go to Chicago.
We go to the pretty artsy districts, I think, normally.
Hmm. So, when you're taking a look at your career, and it's far from at the stage of completion yet,
Sure.
where do you see yourself within, let's say 5 years?
In 5 years. I mean, like I said, I try not to think about it too much. I would like to have broken into television, at least, like or Netflix or something like that. Um, like I
Oh,
said, I'm perfectly content with what I'm doing now, but I think if I had to like say like a dream scenario, I really want to do an episode of Black Mirror. That's one thing that I
mm.
really really want to do. That's probably one of my favorite shows.
Dude, I think you'd be awesome for Black Mirror.
I would love to. That's. I mean, they have, and it's cool because they have a wide array of different composers on there. There's some guys I've never heard of. Then they have, Clint Mansell or Alex Summer or something.
Honestly, I think you'd be great to drop in for the next season of Haunting a Hill House.
Oh yeah, I mean, as much as I would love to, the Newton brothers are incredible, and it's already two guys working in there, so I wouldn't want to make it a crowd.
Well, but
That's like there. I mean, and it's one of those things like when I met them, when I was lucky enough to meet them and Mike Flanagan, they had just signed for Hill House, and they had always told me their advice was to find a director and kind of stick with them. and that's what they've done with Mike. So I think, for me to try to get in on that would be wrong, because that you have your crew that you want to work with. I have the guys who keep coming back to hire me, and I think that forms a bond, and I wouldn't want to, I'd rather have my own thing than try to interrupt that.
Well, I can see the theory of hitching your wagon to a star.
Oh, for sure. I've done that for no sleep. That's how this career got started. I mean, if I could say, if I did have a dream with Hill House type stuff, I would just love to be present and learn from the Newton brothers. Watching them work with an orchestra and all how that goes. I think that would be a really cool experience.
Well, and just BTS. When I've had something that I know is being produced by a certain website. We won't mention names, but they asked, well, who do you want to be in the voice actor roles? I would say, well, this and this person is whom I would suggest, but even more importantly, this is the person that I would like to take care of the score. Right. And I've never changed as far as that recommendation goes, and it's always been yourself.
Oh, well, thank you very much. That's flattering. Thank you.
Well, you do amazing stuff.
Thank you very much.
And there's nothing that you have scored for me that hasn't been anything but exceptional.
I really appreciate that.
Well, truth is truth.
About this is when it's great to hear from the fans and everything, but when an author thinks that we've done them justice and done their story justice, it's definitely special.
Well, and it's the thing that I'm not going to be big brained on this, but there are people who can pull that off. People who make a representation in that third critical part, because it's always it's always writing, voice acting, and scoring to me. Right. And if you can't pull off all three of those, then you're not going to have people coming back later on, or sure, following through and listening all the way through.
Right.
And that is incredibly important to me.
Sure.
And every time where they have said to me, okay, we've got Brandon on board to do the score, I'm like, okay, I can sit back, I can relax.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah, and it's honestly, it's a basic truism that if you've got somebody that is more than competent in what they do, then that's going to take a shit ton of pressure off you. And I'll say this honestly, if it's something that you think is a decent write, but not the greatest thing that you've ever done, that if you've got the right voice actors in place, if you've got the right FX people, if you've got the right person scoring, it's going to sound better than you ever imagined it.
Yeah, I think that's the goal, is to always be, elevating the story and doing it justice and trying to just make it the best thing it can be.
Well, I will say I can't afford you, but I have a story that I want to be done. And I've been trying to get it done for like 2 years. And we've got some really talented voice people, but good God, like I'm saying, it's one of those things. You have to have all the proper elements in place to make it good, to make it a classic. And you're one of those people where I'd have no hesitation in saying, okay, take a listen. What do you think?
Oh, yeah. I mean, yeah, I greatly appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, talent reveals itself easily.
That's very kind.
Now, of course, we're kind of creeping up on the end of the show. By the way, Politipod says we want a no sleep cameo in Hill House.
Oh, wow.
I do not know how that would happen, because I'm almost sure that the Haunting of Hill House people do not know, because there is a complete separation from what happens on the interwebs as to what happens on IRL or
Well,
TV production.
I mean, Mike Flanagan has been on No Sleep. He's a big fan. Uh, that's how he found C.K. Walker. That's how I found Rebecca, was through No Sleep. So he's definitely aware of us.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Yeah, he was on the I forget what season it was. One of the finales. It's called Baraska. It's CK's story. Um, yeah, him and Kate Siegel are both on it.
I like Boraska. It's long, but it's
Very long.
not boring. It's very well paced.
I think I agree. I love that story.
Was that the one that had the chapter of the damn white thing?
No, that is Soft White Dam.
Or
That's MJ Pack. Yeah.
Soft White Dam.
Yeah, that's that was entirely Jeff Clements' production.
You gotta like Jeff.
Oh yeah, big time.
I've been putting up roadblocks for him for years. And he decided to actually do one where he was like, I don't feel that I'm challenged as a producer and an effects guy. I'm like, okay, here, do this one. And actually, it ended up being done by No Sleep. And and good God, did he did an awesome job with that.
What was the story called?
Do we say that? Because that might dox me.
Oh, sure. Okay. Fair enough.
We'll say that offline. I'll tell you
All right.
offline. But now, one of the things that is my thread line that runs through all the interviews that I've done is a little acronym called flexing your pecs, which is you have to have passion for what you do.
Sure.
You have to make the effort to do it, and you have to be committed to see it all the way to the end.
Yeah.
Let me ask you, how do you flex your pec?
I think it goes back to the work ethic thing, and it's just I've worked really hard to just stay present with it and just take it one day at a time, I guess is the best way for me to put it. And what comes, you know. Because I think if you go too broad with it, it's really easy to lose that passion and everything, and just staying day to day.
So what would be your biggest criteria fitting in with that?
Um, I don't know. What do you mean by criteria?
The one project that tested you on that.
Um, hmm. I think, man, that's tough. I mean, no sleep in general for sure is everything for me, but one particular project, um, it's hard to pick, but I think I always almost cast more shine to the season finales for No Sleep. So like Whitefall, Baraska, the Hidden Web Page, those kinds of things. Just because it's easier to become that level of involved and being passionate about when you have that much time to work on one story. Because typically my work is just one story a day, so I don't really have that much time to kind of ruminate on how I'm gonna approach it. But with a season finale, it's one story for a week's worth of work, so I get to really flex on it.
Sure. And I will honestly say I've done nothing to help you this evening, but to have an interview. But when you get that first Hollywood score, I want some vinyl.
I would love to publish the vinyl. I've looked into it for my other albums, and it's just really expensive. And digital's so easy.
It is, and also it gives you the ability to lend an ear to more people that would have not heard it. Because I remember culling through, the old bins at the record store.
I still do that.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the only thing that we had, and everything is available now. I mean, the digital medium is wide open at this
Yeah,
point.
absolutely. And I think that's I think like we were talking earlier, with work ethic and everything. I think with everything being available like that, if someone just keeps at it, they'll be discovered.
Sure. And what's the one thing that you want to be able to pass on to your kids to make them healthy and productive for their future?
Oh gosh, I would just try new things until you find something that you absolutely love to do, and then only do that thing. And be okay with it not be okay with failure, be okay with sucking at something, because that's the only way to get better.
You should never be afraid to fail.
No, failure is that's one thing I've definitely learned is failure is a great thing. It's a great learning tool.
It certainly is. It's as solid of a stone to build a foundation than success.
Yes, 100%.
And let me go ahead. I will finish this up, and we can get you back to your life.
All right.
If you're watching currently, you're still unfamiliar with Brandon's works, please feel free. Check out the description down there. And you will find not only his official website, you'll also find his Twitter, Instagram, iTunes, and Spotify. Also, if you're looking for a little bit more of me, my links are down there for the Twitter, the Streamlabs, my Patreon, and of course the TeePublic store. But of course, one of the most important things is the inclusion of my prescription for additional entertainment. These are people that I like to watch. These are the people that I enjoy watching who may not have a lot of subs, but their content is certainly credible and excellent to watch. And of course, coming up on the show next week, we will be talking to internet artist Samaj. And we'll be taking a look at his art and, of course, talking a little bit about the foundations of what he's done to become the internet sensation that he is. So I would like to thank my guest this evening, Brandon Boone. Thank you very much, sir, for stopping by.
Oh, thank you for having me.
It has always been my pleasure. And, of course, tune in next week at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where we'll be talking with the artist Samaj. But until then, the doctor's office is closed. Have a great night.